Welcome to Dark Hours FM, where real horror meets the unknown. You can now listen to every episode, explore new stories, and uncover what hides behind the mic at DarkHours-FM.com, the official home of the dark. Tonight's story, Season 2, Episode 11, The Cabin That Was Already Occupied. Let's begin. The cabin wasn't supposed to be in use. That was the first thing Daniel checked when he booked it. A small, off-grid rental owned by the county, tucked deep inside Redstone National Forest, only accessible by a narrow service road that barely showed up on maps. Late October meant cold nights and early darkness, but that was exactly what he wanted. No crowds, no noise, just isolation, writing, and a few days away from everything that followed him at home. The key was where the ranger said it would be, taped beneath the back step, wrapped in plastic. The cabin looked untouched. No lights, no smoke from the chimney. The porch boards creaked under his boots as he stepped inside, and the air smelled like dust and old wood, the kind of scent that comes from buildings that are used just often enough to avoid decay. Everything appeared normal. Too normal. The first thing that bothered him was the guest log. It sat open on the small table near the window, pen resting across the page as if someone had just set it down. Daniel flipped back through the entries. The most recent signature was dated 3 days earlier. Odd, but not alarming. People sometimes left early. What bothered him was that there was no checkout note. Just a name, written neatly, followed by a blank space beneath it. Daniel told himself not to overthink it. As evening settled in, the forest outside the cabin grew unnaturally still. No wind through the trees, no animals. Just silence pressed flat against the windows. He lit the oil lamp, cooked a simple meal, and tried to focus on his work. That's when he noticed the second chair. The cabin had been listed as a single-occupancy rental. 1 bed, 1 chair, 1 place setting. But near the fireplace, partially turned toward the door, sat a second wooden chair. Its legs were worn smooth at the bottom, as if it had been dragged back and forth repeatedly. Daniel stared at it for a long time, before finally pulling it closer to the table, telling himself the listing had probably been wrong. He woke that night to the sound of footsteps inside the cabin. Not loud, not rushed, slow, careful. The floorboards creaked in a deliberate pattern, moving from the door toward the fireplace. Daniel lay frozen, listening, heart pounding so hard he was sure whoever was inside could hear it. He reached for his phone. No signal, no service. Just a dim lock screen reflecting his own pale face. The footsteps stopped. A chair scraped softly across the floor. Daniel didn't sleep again. In the morning, the cabin looked unchanged, except for the chair. It had been moved back to its original position near the fireplace. The guest log lay open again, a fresh entry added beneath the last name. No date, just a message. Didn't think anyone else was coming. Daniel packed his things, intending to leave immediately, but the service road was blocked. A fallen tree lay across it, snapped clean through the trunk. The cut was fresh, too clean to be from a storm. He returned to the cabin, shaking, telling himself he'd wait it out until daylight fully broke. That afternoon, the sounds returned. Soft movement in the walls, footsteps above the ceiling, a slow, steady breathing that seemed to follow him from room to room. At one point, he heard someone humming, low, tuneless, right behind him. But every time he turned, there was nothing there. As night fell again, the oil lamp flickered violently, then steadied. The second chair scraped back on its own. A voice spoke from the darkness. "You weren't supposed to see the book." Daniel ran. He didn't remember opening the door or stepping onto the porch. Only the sudden cold air and the overwhelming feeling of being watched from every direction. He sprinted into the woods, branches tearing at his jacket, the sound of footsteps following him, never closer, never farther. When he finally collapsed near the ranger station hours later, the sun was rising. Search crews returned to the cabin that morning. They found Daniel's belongings neatly stacked on the table. The guest log lay open to a blank page. No second chair, no signs of struggle, just a single sentence carved deeply into the wooden table. Occupancy limit 1. The cabin has since been removed from all rental listings, but hikers still report seeing a light burning there at night. And sometimes 2 chairs facing the fire. You've been listening to Dark Hours FM. Until next time, never ignore the silence.